Water when I'm thirsty. Drink.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Water for the Thirsty. It's the word, simply the word refreshing. It's the third Friday in January, so it's our second time connecting in this new year, going through this Bible reading plan for, what's that, a 10th or 11th time. And of course, because it's the word, it's always refreshing. There's new things, new insights. As we grow, we see and learn different things, and we're going to look and see what new things we're discovering this year. We missed you, Courtney, last week. Glad to have you back, and formally congrats again on the blessing that the Lord has provided to you and your family. I'm waiting on my picture though. Still waiting.
Oh, okay. I got you.
I know you're the big photographer, so I know you pulled out your camera and done the big snap of the face. So I'm still looking, even if it's a phone thing, I'm looking for that. You know.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, Lauren, you were telling me before we came on that you had a few things out of your reading that you wanted to explore or wrestle with, or just even share that you were considering an idea, but you haven't landed anywhere with it.
Yeah, it was more like I said, it's more like an internal reflection. Where he was talking, it was like Luke 13:10 to.
Say that again, Luke 13:10.
Yeah, Luke 13:10 to 17. Where essentially.
Sharika was reading for you last time.
Oh yes, yeah. She was.
She stepped in to fill your role.
Okay.
All right, you said Luke 13:10.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
10 to 17 is the little window.
Okay. One Sabbath, as Jesus was teaching in the synagogue, he saw a woman who had been crippled by an evil spirit. She had been bent double for 18 years and was unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Dear woman, you are healed of your sickness." Then he touched her, and instantly she could stand straight. How he praised God. But the leader in charge of the synagogue was indignant that Jesus had healed her on the Sabbath day. There were 6 days of the week for working. He said to the crowd, "Come on those days to be healed, not on the Sabbath." But the Lord replied, "You hypocrites, each of you works on the Sabbath day. Don't you untie your ox or your donkey from its stall on the Sabbath and lead it out for water? This dear woman, a daughter of Abraham, has been held in bondage by Satan for 18 years. Isn't it right that she be released even on the Sabbath?" This shamed his enemies, but all the people rejoiced at the wonderful things he did.
Yeah. So my thought to self was like, a lot of times he's calling them hypocrites. And I was thought to myself, well, where is my own hypocrisy? Like, what areas of my life am I a hypocrite? Like, I may not be doing the exact thing as other people, but I still have my own things that I would easily overlook and say it's justified, but then point a finger in the other direction when it's somebody else doing something that I don't do, for example. Yeah.
Well, let's linger there for a little bit and ask a question. What are some of the things that other people do that get under your skin, that annoy you, or that you have a serious issue with and you don't understand why people just do that? What are those things? or give me an example of one of those things. How about that?
That get under my skin.
Or that offend you greatly. That you just like this.
Tone of voice offends me.
Huh?
tone of voice offends me.
Okay, well let's move away from the word offense.
Okay.
So that's
Tone of
taking me in
voice,
a whole another direction, and because it's
like
okay
a
to have things that
behavior.
offend you.
You say like a behavior.
Yeah, or things that people do that you just that you take issue with, or rub you the wrong way, or that
I'm filtering. Hold on. I don't like seeing people treating people who are like they view as less than them negative.
why not?
Why? Because they're a person just like them. They're no better than just because you have different circumstances doesn't make you better than the next person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like for example, I was in a I remember I went out to lunch with a group of people when I was in college, and the waiter that was helping us, you could tell he had just started the job. Like he didn't really. He's nervous. You could tell he was nervous, and he's trying to get the order, and he wasn't getting the order right. And so one of the people that was there was like, every time he put the tip on the table and said, every time the person messes up, he's taking something from it.
Oh wow.
And I was like, so stuff like that. Like it was like, okay, this is what we're doing.
Mm. I
So
understand.
it's stuff like
So
that.
your initial question is, what is my area of hypocrisy?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Hmm.
That's a good and reflective question. I don't know that without understanding you, I'm wondering how to help tease that out for you. Let me give you how I
Mm-hmm.
process now,
Mm-hmm.
so that I try not to
Mm-hmm.
be in that space of hypocrisy. One of the
Mm-hmm.
dynamics that I experience with some other people is their inability to understand how people could do something. Like they just
Mm-hmm.
can't understand how someone can do this or do that, especially if they have a certain level of understanding. Like, how could you do that? This is just so wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. How could that person do this? Or how could that person do that? Do you have a how could that person
Yes.
type issue?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you think about how that person can do that, you think about what it is that you do and how you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you start to draw the equivalency, because the same kinds of things that motivate you or facilitate your circumstance facilitate
Mm-hmm.
their circumstance. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you start to, how can us another person do that, where you're not just trying to understand, but you're trying to, but that you are communicating that what they're doing is so offensive and they should know better, right? Which may or may not be true, right? We're not going to go to the rightness or wrongness of it, right? Because that's a whole other issue by itself. Right now, we're just exploring your question of unearthing that hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
The hypocrisy is when you can't relate to what they are doing, even though it offends you. So it's one thing for something to offend you, but then be able to understand it. When you when you can't understand it, that is one way to unearth a hypocrisy. Because if you hold a view of sin where it's refusal to submit to the lordship of Christ in any area, then what you're doing and what they're doing are the same thing, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us, we categorize the things, or we say, I'm trying, but they're not. I'm trying, they're not. They're just out there with it. But when I'm able to do that kind of equivalency, because that's what Jesus did, right? What's the difference between you pulling your son out of the well and me healing the sick person? Like, you would do that and you would understand, hey, this is an exceptional circumstance. Somebody is in need and I have the power to heal them. What do? Go and say, wait, I'll be able to wait till the nighttime. to come and rescue you till the sun goes down. What happens to you in the meantime, and what happens if you're injured, and all of that kind of stuff, right? So it's being, when you recognize that, how could they thing, without being able to and not being able to understand where it's coming from. That's one way, and not the only way, but one way to unearth hypocrisy.
So that was one of my thoughts with trying to figure it out. I realized though, like, I need to figure out the other way, because when I reflected on that, I realized, yeah, when I was younger, I had a lot more of those absolutes, like, how dare they? Shame on them. But as I've grown older, through experience, through education, through neuroscience, through through all that stuff, like, I could see the how. Like, I could see how it's possible. And it could very well be me as well.
Right.
But then I'm like, so because that has been a shift in my perspective, I was like, I know there's got to be something. So I was like, but I don't, because of that shift, I'm still having, like, I've been praying about it. I was like, Lord, I need you to show me what that is. Because,
well, you may be in a good place where you don't really have a hypocrisy, because you see yourself in other people. But that's really where the hypocrisy is, where you see yourself as different somehow. But if you're starting to see an equivalency between yourself and other people, and saying that could easily be me, or I wouldn't do that, but that person is me over here, then your hypocrisy is
situation, that circumstances, I could very well do the same thing. Yeah.
Or maybe I wouldn't do that, but what they are doing, I am doing over here. They are no different than me. Hypocrisy to me is rooted in I don't mean prejudice from the standpoint of I see myself as different or better than someone else, different and better. So hypocrisy is usually rooted there. When you start to see equivalency between you and other people, it kind of reduces, eliminates, and minimizes hypocrisy. So I hope that is helpful in helping you do that in introspection.
Yeah.
Jerry, I see you very deep in thought there. It didn't look like you were just listening. It looked like you were reflecting. So I'm gonna give you a chance to share those reflections.
I was just also thinking how it wouldn't be hypocrisy, right? But you can't see the equivalency. So let's say you've walked a path. There was something you were addicted to. You've come out of that. You're trying to give help to someone who's asked you to help them out of an addiction. And so you have all these learnings, so you can lead them out by example, right? Call it Moses leading Israel out of Egypt, I don't know. But then at times you can maybe overestimate their, what is the word I'm looking for? Their readiness or willingness. So they say, yeah, man, I really need help with this, whatever. And you knew when you made that cry for help, all you wanted was somebody to be there for you and support you and whatnot. So you're being that to them. And then you start to realize, okay, you're not really at a place where you, ready for, really willing to make this transition. Because I see people where, they talk about it, but every time they have to take accountability and act, there's always this, well, see, what had happened was, and my thing is, the only thing that's impactful is what gets done, right? So you can say anything, but until and unless something is done, and then how do you profess that you're learning or that you've changed if the behavior is still the same, right? You kind of have to pick out.
So Jerry, I want to wrestle that a little bit.
Yeah.
With a gym illustration. Imagine I am, no matter how heavy I am, right? But let's imagine, for instance, I am 250 pounds, 265, because that was one weight I was at one point. And I go to the gym and I work out for a month and I don't really see the scale moving. Is it because I'm not putting in the work?
Yes.
Yeah, listen, that's why I paused because I was like 3, 2, 1. Sharika.
Tell me more. Tell me more about that.
I believe that you're not putting in the holistic work necessary. If you are,
I endorse that message.
I think a lot of us do what we think we should do, or the part that we think makes us comfortable, or the part that just feels like this should be enough. So if you hitting the gym 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week, heck, if you even hitting the gym twice a week and the scale's not going down, it's because you ain't doing the work. You're supposed to change your diet. You got to change your mindset. You got to change your sleep. You got to change your habits. Going to the gym alone and eating trash ain't going to help.
Yeah.
Calories in, calories out.
Well, that is true, but even when you make those changes over the first 2 weeks or so, you don't really notice anything on the scale, and sometimes the weight even goes up, right?
No, I disagree. So you're noticing something in the first 2 weeks. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with Debbie about willful ignorance. In the first 2 weeks, you're noticing something. It may not be what you want it to be, but something is changing. Whether it's your anger because you're just disgustingly hungry, whether it's the way you feel during the day, whether it's, hey, the water weight is going up, or the skin may not be as loose. But some of us are focused on what we want our 2-week progress to look like, that it feels like nothing's happening.
Good. And that's where I was going with Jerry. Some people, you think that they should be changing and you're not seeing the change because they're not really looking at the things that are changing.
Well, I hear that the kind of feeling of what Sharika said though. It's like I think people get focused on what they think the work should look like and which areas they want to change. So it's like there's so many people I know who are gym nuts. They're in the gym 3, 4, 5 days, but then nobody consumes more sugar than them. And every time you have a conversation with them about it, it's like, well, it's just I have so much work to do, and I need, that Red Bull, or I have to have my glass of wine to wind down. I have to this, or I have to, whatever the case is. And it's like, if you keep, what is the definition of insanity? Same thing over and over and expecting different results. It's like at some point in time, you have to realize this behavior is not going to give me this outcome. I need to change the behavior. But they keep just giving you better and better reasons why. I just, yeah.
But so, like, referencing the hypocrisy aspect, though, you too have been at places where you said you wanted to do something and you're not doing the work to do it. So to make judgment of the person who's doing exactly what you've done yourself, like, I can't believe they're asking for this help and they're not serious. And then you be like, well, actually, there's areas of my life where I said I want to do this, and I'm clearly not serious.
You weren't serious for 5 years before you got serious.
Right. And like, it took you a minute just to get to the place where you would be holistic, like seriously focusing on your diet, focusing on your exercise. It's like it took you however long it took you. It may take them longer to get to that same place.
My thinking is that most of us, we only make changes when we've lost enough or enough has left us. And because people all have different pain thresholds, you might have to lose way more than me to make the change I made, right? So I can't be judgy for that. But I also need to apply some wisdom to understand when I don't have any more, I haven't been graced or gifted anymore to help you past a certain point. You know what I mean? Because then I'm just going to burn myself out and frustrate myself, right? It's like, I can help you up to this point, and if you're not able to do what you need to do yet, then maybe there's, somebody else who is graced for that.
More patient.
Well, maybe, I mean, maybe that's the word. But I think, going back to that thing we said late last year about fear being relational, right? I think people unnecessarily allow others to traumatize them because we underestimate what being a resource or being a help to someone else is. And then, man, we just let ourselves get dragged through the mud.
So I think it's helpful, Jerry, in light of what you said, agreeing with you up to a point. I'm not disagreeing with you, but agreeing with you up to a point. That people are motivated by their values and value systems, and so in the case of what you said, people are motivated. People make changes when they've lost something. Yeah, if they lost something of value that they don't want to lose anymore, then they're going to.
Correct.
But some people don't have to lose anything; they could just want something and value something else, right? So it's a value-based proposition, and each person's values are placed differently depending on their life experience, and then understanding that it may be helpful in the case where you're helping someone to understand that their values may be different than yours, and try to help them identify that thing of value and move towards that place, because you can't really make that transition till you get to that place of value. And when you reflect on your own experience, you think, wow, it took me 4 years to realize that this is what I value, or I don't want to lose any more of this, or I'd like to gain that, or this is important to me and that's not as important to me. And it took me till all this time to figure out that. It becomes a question of how do I help them identify that for themselves.
Or if you can help them.
Well, considering that you've walked the road, you help them by identifying that until they get to that place of value, nothing's going to change.
I get you.
And you communicate that to them. But you don't have to keep communicating that to them, but at least they know that, and that is at least they're no longer ignorant.
Yeah.
And they have a space from which to begin working towards.
Yeah. You may not be the one to kind of handhold them on that journey, but
right.
Because I think sometimes we again, we're not clear on what either what our role is or when our season is. Because some of us, God just wants you to throw the seed. Some of us, God wants you to come along and water it and throw some sunshine. Some of it, God wants you to help harvest, whatever the case is. But if you're not clear on that, you go burn yourself out, and then you're mad at the person because you were trying to do what you weren't even supposed to be doing, right? And then you're mad that they haven't given you the results you expect. So
right. I think the danger in hypocrisy is prejudice. Or hypocrisy is a manifestation of prejudice.
Because it's assuming, like you said, that you are somehow better than somebody because you might be sinning differently than them, right?
Yes.
I don't know.
Tell me more, Karika.
I don't know, meaning I could be possibly wrong.
Well, tell me more about your thought. Whatever it is you're wrestling and mulling. Unpack it for us.
If you say you're going to do something, or if you have a promise, oath, whatever, and you don't do it, and I notice you don't do it, I don't know if it's hypocritical of me to call that out.
No, that's not what we're talking about. That's not, and yes, you should. You have a responsibility as a friend, as a person in relationship.
Call me on my BS.
Hold people accountable. Absolutely.
Okay, all day.
That's not what we're talking about. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the sense that somehow because I am not doing that, I'm better. I'm holding you to a different standard that I'm holding myself. That's where hypocrisy is.
So,
and so I can hold you accountable, and still I can say, like, suppose we both have a similar issue, or we holding each other accountable. I can hold you accountable, recognizing that I too am weak and fallible in my area.
So what about, we live in a hierarchical society, right?
Yes.
And so what about those cases where it's like, yeah, I didn't expect that from you? Maybe someone of higher status or statue. Is it still hypocritical then?
So the definition of hypocrisy is the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's behavior does not conform.
So you're not walking a talk.
Right. So here's it. So I'm going to use an example, probably the worst example, but I don't have a better one for you now. Let's use priests. Sworn to celibacy. All right. Or no, they're not. whatever. They outside, and we're outside,
Mhm.
and I can easily say, you know what? I expected better from you. I expect to see you outside. Does that make me hypocritical?
No. I would like to delineate between accountability and hypocrisy.
Well, it's the moral standards that I'm not holding by. I'm not telling you I'm going inside with you. I'm just saying I don't expect you to be outside with me.
Right, and that's why I'm delineating between hypocrisy and accountability. Because
Yeah, because they signed up to
Yeah.
signed up for being held to a particular standard, right?
I'm holding you to your standard, not to mine.
Correct.
I'm
So
holding
is
you
that
to
why-
I'm holding you to a standard, whether it be yours or mine. It's a standard that you subscribe to. That's
Yeah.
accountability.
So is that why non-Christians judge Christians?
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know about the judging, but I remember situations where, like, if I was in the office and that sun even began to go down, people would just be like, yo, what are you doing here? Because there's an expectation that
Right.
you name Sabbath keeper, don't let,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? And I in my mind, that's just them trying to hold me to, hold me accountable to a standard I have basically set, right?
So let's put a religion aside.
Mhm.
Mm.
I'm outside stealing. I'll put it on myself. Right? In the middle of my thievery, I see Lorraine. She in a spot because she next to steal. And I'm like, dang, Lorraine, you's a mom, son. You ain't supposed to be doing this. That's wild. Am I being hypocritical?
No. Hypocrisy is more of, Lorraine, you are. Hypocrisy is when I am rooted, when I think because I am not stealing, I am better than you are.
So if we
And so
both
my and so
doing
my
it,
and so my calling out of your stealing is to elevate me, not to help you.
so when you said it before, it was like we both shouldn't be sinning, right? And you were saying how all sin is equal. So that's what I'm saying. Like, regardless if whatever the sin is, you could be doing whatever. The fact is, I shouldn't be doing it either. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm asking if that's hypocrisy. But I'm hearing that it has to be relational hypocrisy in that you doing it, I'm not doing it. I think I'm better than you.
Or
Yeah.
what if y'all both doing it and somebody feels like their reasons for doing it is
More justified.
better? Like,
But,
Right.
but that was my situation with Lorraine. I could
Right.
do it because I ain't got no kids. I ain't got nothing to lose. Lorraine, you's a mom, son. You shouldn't be doing that. You should know better.
So I would say it like this. So like you see that in situations where drug dealers keep younger brothers or kids with special gifts and talents out of drug dealing, right? That's not necessarily hypocrisy. That's acknowledging this thing is folly, and I don't think you should be a part of this because you can get out, right? That's not hypocrisy. Has the air of superiority, which is why I say it's rooted in prejudice. It's the I'm different or better because of my circumstance.
Ooh. So is it the same when Adventists say that they're the remnant because they believe they're better?
Yes, when it elevates them, yes. When it elevates them, not when it's functional and it's this is my role. I'm a remnant, so this is my role, right?
No, but no one can really tell you if you're remnant or not. Like that's not. So in the sense, it's hypocrisy because you declared something upon yourself, and I'm therefore better, by default.
So hypocrisy is not prejudice, but has prejudice in it.
No, what I'm saying is, if I tell you because I'm light skinned, I'm prettier, and I define what light skin is. Nobody gave pretty light skin, but I said because I'm light skinned, I'm prettier.
That's prejudice.
I'm a hypocrite.
That's prejudice. Hypocrite is when the hypocrisy piece is when I'm holding you accountable when I have a different standard, one standard for you and another standard for me. And somehow I am absolving myself of being at that standard.
So if I'm an Adventist and I say I'm saved and remnant because I keep the Sabbath, and you're not because you worship on Friday and you're a Muslim, but I'm punching my wife in the face, I'm being a hypocrite.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So it's not the first part. It has to be an and statement.
Yes,
Because if you had
it's rooted in prejudice, but it's not prejudice itself.
no, but if
Or it's not
Rome
just
had
prejudice.
stopped at you worship on Friday and not mentioned he, knucking his wife on a Saturday,
Then it would be prejudice.
it would just be prejudice.
Correct.
And we are, all denominations are famous for that, right? It's like, well, not just even denominations, it's just like how, if I'm in the LGBTQ community and you don't acknowledge me by using my pronouns, well, now you're X or you're Y or you're homophobic or it's hate speech or it's whatever, right? If we just have a disagreement. It's no different than if, well, you speak in tongues, I speak in tongues and you don't, you're not a real Christian. If I'm slain in the spirit and you're not a real Christian.
So, like the definition he gave, where it says practice of claiming to have moral standards, but your behavior is not in line with the standards that you said you have.
Mhm.
Is hypocrisy.
Correct.
So, here in the Luke 13, they're telling him, look, there's 6 days you could have done that. Like, you ain't had to do it on Sabbath. You had 6 days. And he's like, okay, well, if your ox fell, if your ox fell on Saturday, would you say in 24 hours? It's like, no. So it's like they set the standard of you only do work on the Sabbath. On the 6 days and not on the Sabbath. And he's like, but you do stuff on the Sabbath. So whatever standard you're claiming to have, your behavior is not in line with what you're saying that you're doing, and that's
Correct. Correct. We judge others by the standards we set for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Whatever you're claiming, do you live by what you're saying
Correct.
that you live by?
Yeah. All right. Did we touch on your thing, Maureen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you have another one?
My other one. Oh, it was just that thought I think I sent you where it was once again another thought. It was it was something along the lines of like grace, like it was Luke 7:43, but I guess it goes above from 36.
Mm-hmm.
And do we want him to read it first before I say it, or say it and then we read it?
I would say read it and then say it.
Okay.
So
You said 43 to what?
Luke 7:36 to I guess 43. I don't know if Jared wants to go further than that. It goes further, but
Okay.
we could go to 43.
okay.
All right. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him, so Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman from the city heard he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Then she knelt behind him at his feet, weeping. Her tears fell on his feet, and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. When the Pharisee who invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She's a sinner. Then Jesus answered his thoughts. Simon, he said to the Pharisee, I have something to say to you. Go ahead, teacher, Simon replied. Then Jesus told him this story. A man loaned money to two people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces to the other, but neither of them could repay him, so he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Simon answered, I suppose the one whom canceled the larger debt. That's
And
right,
so,
Jesus said.
mhm. Keep going. Oh, are you still reading?
Oh, you said 43.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know if you were still. Yeah. So my thought was, could our limited gratitude be a reflection of our limited understanding of our true condition and the heavy price that was paid to reconcile us back to God?
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the our inability to relate to other people and extend grace and forgiveness to other people is a lack of appreciation for our own debt. um, you know, we don't fully appreciate it, or even if we do appreciate it, we like the guy in the unmerciful servant parable. Yes, mine was paid, but you still owe me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so it's a failure to see the other person as myself and to empathize with them because they are me and I am them. It's that failure to do that. But I think that's rooted in the appreciation.
Mhm.
If I understand how much I owed and what was done for me, and I understood relationally what this other thing is comparatively, there's no way that I could. Well, there's not. It's not. It becomes either difficult or makes me grossly unappreciative.
Ah. There's
And
some
then like when
habitual
he,
line steppers, Jared.
Hmm?
There's some habitual line steppers, man.
More than you,
I
and I
guess
say
not.
and I say that more than each of us.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm just saying, like, I'm talking about for myself, just going through that process. There's a process every time. Like, I have to take some inventory. It's like, cause I guess the flesh, like, you get frustrated quick. I think. Um, I'm still even trying to figure out that process of not being quick to push people away, man. Cut them off. Like, man, you cut off, bro. Like,
Yeah. So every time I think about the habitual line steppers, I think about how old am I? I'm about to be 45. That's 45 years of line stepping, and he's still patient with me.
right,
Anything that they could do, is that anything that they could do compared to what I've been doing to him?
true.
but you know, it was
Anything?
interesting though, like when he said to him, "Does he know she's a sinner?" I literally laughed out loud. I was like, "I'm
How do
sorry."
you know?
Like I was like, maybe there's a different meaning.
What's in your house?
I was like, maybe there's a different meaning. Like maybe there's some hidden context that I'm missing. Because I'm like,
No, but that's the thing again, because we have this hierarchy of sin, right?
Right.
And it's like that's why I tell you it's always amusing to me when God says 6 things he hates, 7 are an abomination, and the first thing he starts with is not, you had a kid out of wedlock, you were smoking, you were playing in mass, it's a proud look, a lying tongue, feet that are quick to spread mischief, i.e. gossip. If that was church folk given that list, it would be entirely different, right? It would be like, yeah, you don't even kneel to pray in church. Okay, bro. Yeah.
Short skirts.
Yeah.
But Lauren, as you laughed out, I was like, how she get inside your house though?
She's
Like you
still
know
pretty
somebody
familiar,
at the door, like
familiar with the surroundings, right?
the open field, people that just walk in your house. Why is
She's
she
probably
there?
accustomed rolling through, Jared.
I mean, he probably had to leave the door open for everybody to see that he's in my house. Okay,
Remember, yeah, but Lauren, remember, these are people these Pharisees and stuff, remember, they even had temple prostitutes. So you come to the temple to pray and ask for forgiveness for sins. And on your way in or on your way out, Have a good one. With a happy
Mhm.
ending. Really? And they were kosher with that. They were like, yeah, no biggie.
Yeah, but how? I'm thinking. Maybe, I don't know if their culture is much different than ours, right? But this thing says 36. One of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, so he went to the Pharisee's house. So they having dinner in the house. There was a woman in the town who lived a sinful life. She learned that Jesus was having dinner over there, so she came and brought perfume, and then came in the house and went to Jesus' feet.
But
How did
the house,
how did you get
but
inside?
culturally,
I
like
told you
that might
he
not have been
won't
a
do
big
that
thing,
joint
like
before.
because, like I said, if the trend or the pattern that you notice with them is they're all for show, like everything's for show. Like they're gonna show you that they're the highest. Like he came to my house of all the houses. We had dinner. Like I'm making it up. My windows, my blinds are up. my door's cracked. You can hear the conversation. Like I'm
I
pretty sure it was a
understand.
big. I feel
But
like
it's one thing if she's standing in the street and looking in from outside. But
it's
she
a
came
whole heap of
inside.
people probably outside.
But she didn't just stay outside. She came inside
Yes,
and went
so
to
she
the
could get
table.
in. Yes.
And she was allowed inside. Nobody didn't
No.
stop her at the door. Nobody didn't say, "Excuse me, you weren't invited. Please leave." Like,
Nah, because they were like, don't call me out while you in here. I ain't gonna say nothing to you. You don't say nothing to me.
that must be very culturally different because I don't know that you could just roll up in somebody's house like that.
No, but see, we're different. We're not about that life. I'm not about that life.
You know, that's
You
very,
don't come
very
in my
different.
house unless I invite you. It's not happening.
And then the thing that he's concerned with is that Jesus is letting the woman touch him, not that this woman is in my house.
His feet.
Yeah.
Like she
You
shouldn't
know
even
who the
allow to
woman
touch
is.
it.
And you know who the woman is. She's in your house, and that's not the thing that you are concerned with.
No.
You're concerned with
Nothing.
how Jesus is interacting with her. That was yeah, I laughed at that as well.
I like when Lauren said it's like, don't call me out, I won't say nothing. You know what I'm
Call
saying?
me out. Like, excuse me.
Oh.
You can...
You know when you just get the kind of like head nod, like, yeah, so.
Somebody gonna have to help me with the cultural thing there, that dynamic of people just rolling up in your house. Just
They must be, but they are also very welcoming. Like okay, so like once again, I don't know this for a fact, but this is my perspective. So just like when Lot would have a new person come in town and be like, come to my house. I don't know you in our world. I don't know you. You're not coming in my house.
But still, that was an invite, right?
Right.
The people didn't just walk off the street, hear
Right.
that were there, and then come to the house and come inside.
But I'm pretty sure they were making sure everybody knew who was in their house. And the only way they can make that known, they can't let that happen with closed doors. They had to have the door wide open. They had to have the blinds, the whatever up. They had to let everybody know because people were surrounded. People been following him this whole time.
So it was like a block party then.
Could be.
But only
It was a block party for the neighborhood. It wasn't a private dinner. It was a block party for the
Nah,
neighborhood.
it wasn't. He's like, I'm eating at yours. Okay, well, we eating at his
It
house.
was a block party, and all the people from the neighborhood were welcome to come, and it was a big dinner like that. And Jesus was one of the people who was invited, or he was having this little shindig, and people from the neighborhood can come through, and she from the neighborhood, so yeah, that makes sense.
That's the type of energy Jesus was on. He came with an entourage at all times. Like he wasn't coming solo. The party was wherever he was at. Every time.
See. Understood. All right. Courtney, you got anything there?
Oh man, I'm just looking at it. Man, Jesus answered his thoughts. That was interesting. He said, questioning whether Jesus is even a prophet. So again, we have this similar to the last conversation, where because of this role, this position, where this person is making this, I guess, voicing this opinion about what what a prophet is. He has an expectation of what that looks like. I just thought that was interesting. from this verse and the other one, where what these leaders in these roles, what they expect versus what Jesus expects for those roles. Um,
What does Jesus expect for those roles?
Man, I think you're just looking for a lot more compassion. It looks like a little bit more
But
understanding of those people. Like they're making a lot of times because of the sin or the assumption of sin. We can sit down here and cast a judgment about the character of somebody. Um, and then Jesus is, obviously the Son of God. In this situation, he can actually look at the person's heart and know what's really going on. Like you said, those inner workings, their real intentions, maybe their real struggles. Um, so I kind of look at that as more of that's really a true responsibility of those folks in those positions. I think to kind of peel some of those, I say those layers back and really, try to understand the person.
True.
I think is going back to what we said earlier. It's not even just understanding the person. It's like if you understand your own depth
Hmm.
Mhm.
and your own, state of affairs, as it were, you will be way less likely to be so lacking in compassion to anyone else, right? Because if you don't even admit that you have and you are a problem, you think you all turning up roses, then that's why I think you have a tendency to now look at everybody else as like,
Yeah, and you're not providing accountability to be helpful,
yeah,
Hmm.
right? It's not, hey, I'm walking this with you. I want to help you, and so we all move in together, right? Come go. You know, it's not even like that. Your statements are more stay down there because you ain't
Mhm.
ready for up here yet.
Right. Lost
Mhm.
cause. Like, nah.
Mhm.
Like, you done.
It's like you got to put in your time first before you could come up here. You ain't putting your time yet.
Crazy. Yeah.
you ain't paid your dues.
Mhm.
Well, speaking of that, I would like to go to Genesis chapter 7 and 8. Um, I I had a mental wrestling this month, this since the last time we met after reading this. All right. Courtney, you can read 7 verse 4.
7-4. All right. Now this is about the flood. Right. So for 7 days from now, I will make the rains pour down on the earth, and it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights until I have wiped from the earth all the living things that I've created.
I go to 17 and read 17 to 20.
All right, Genesis 17.
No,
Oh, verse
7, chapter
17.
7. Just
7,
17.
17. All right. And then for 40 days, the flood waters grew deeper, covering the ground and lifting the boat high above the earth. As the waters rose higher and higher above the ground, the boat floated safely on the surface. Finally, the water covered even the highest mountains on the earth, rising more than 22 feet above the highest peaks.
Yeah,
All
so
the
I'm gonna
living
pause there.
things.
I'm
Okay.
gonna pause there. First, before this is just a small side note question, but how did they know it? Who was there out there measuring to know it was 20 feet above the highest mountain? Like Noah couldn't have known that. And so how did they get that information? That seems a real specific number. Right? But that's small thing. That's not where I am. Verse
Okay.
24.
All right. 24
Go 24
read.
through to 8 3.
All right. 24. And the floodwaters covered the earth for 150 days. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the floodwaters began to recede. the underground waters stopped flowing and the torrential rains from the sky were stopped. So the flood waters gradually receded from the earth after 150 days.
So my question here is, this is the thing I was wrestling with. Why is the all-powerful God just letting the water recede? Go through a natural process. Couldn't he have just made it all go away?
Hmm.
What was the value of, because it took a year for the water to go away.
Yeah.
And they had to wait the process out. And God's answer, I had concern for you, so I'm gonna just send the wind and let the thing do its thing. And when it happens and it's done, it's done. It's like, what's the value of process to God? That he doesn't, first of all, and we go back to the first verse. His intent was to wipe out everybody.
Mhm.
He could have just
Wipe
snapped his
them out.
fingers and everybody dead, right?
Going all Thanos on him.
Right. And he could have,
Not Thanos.
yeah, he could have done that. He could have Thanos them, but he could have, caused them to get a disease or whatever, right? And they could have, slowly died out from the disease, right? I mean, like there are options that are available to him, right?
Maybe it was a cleansing process.
Exactly. Cleansing process.
Mhm.
What's the significance of process to God? Because clearly process matters. He didn't just
Yes.
flood the earth.
And everything.
He rained for 40 days. Rained enough rain for it to fill up. So he turned on the tap and let it fill up. And then he switched the tap off and then let it drain out. All right? Like literally, it was a process. It wasn't I wouldn't even say it was miraculous in that it was instant or magnanimous. It was rain fell, rain built up, the waters came out from wherever they were, it full up, and then it drained out. He leveraged process to achieve his objective. What's the significance of process to God? And I'm asking that because coming out of our conversation last week where we were wrestling with Sharika, this process thing, seeing that God has this thing for process and he lets things play out, like just the whole sin thing. How many years we wrestling with this sin thing? And you talk about Corinthians talks about, he's gonna vanquish his enemies until he put them on his feet and then hand them over to God. And that process is taking out. So what's the significance of process? What's the value in process?
I mean, there's usually lessons in the process. There's usually refining in the process. There's multiple things that work depending on the person and the circumstance. And sometimes, like we've talked about before with the Israelites being in the wilderness, like he could have taken them the short route. And he was like, nah, like if I take them this route, they're gonna run back. If I put them this route, the quick route, like they're not gonna make it. So we gotta go the long route. So the process is different for every person because it's doing something.
Okay. Well, then let's ask this. What can you suggest would be the concerns of God that make process valuable to him? Because when he's acting, he's not just acting. He's acting because he's concerned about something. And this process thing helps in that process, in achieving these other things. So what are those things that might matter to God that he allows process?
I think the things is us. And sometimes we don't, the thing with the power of choice is we have to come to a place of understanding and appreciation of things. Our value system, like you said, has to be adjusted so that we would make choices that are in line with what he would want us to make. And it's not something he can force. He understands that sometimes there's a lot of nurturing and pruning and correcting and any number of things before we get it. And maybe That's why he just, allows the process so that we can really get it. Because he's not looking for change behavior, he's looking for transformation, right? A change in who we actually are. And that generally with us knuckleheads takes time.
Does it just take time though?
Well, time, effort, consistency, some knock if you buck moments.
The reason I'm
Well, I think
asking is that
it also produces it also, I guess, ideally ideally it should produce increased trust, ideally, on the perfect side. Doesn't always happen, but because like for example, in this story, like they had to wait for him. Like you ain't getting out of this thing until he let you out. So
but he could have let them out, right? He could have let them out. And if we go through the story, I'm with you, but I'm pointing to the fact that
the time
he didn't just arbitrarily set a time. He let the thing run, and when it was dry, then they got out. Right? It wasn't a case of, I'm y'all just waiting on me. No, they were waiting on the water to go down, and he was allowed. Right? They weren't waiting on him per se. They were waiting on the water to go down, and he was just letting the water run. He wasn't even he just sent the wind and turned everything off, and then just let it run. So it was kind of like.
So did God tell Noah when he would even let it rain? Wasn't that a process in and of itself?
When ask that question.
When it would rain.
He told them in 7 days it would rain for 40 nights in verse 7. So a week from when it was supposed to rain, he told them in advance. He told them it was going to rain from before, but then he gave them a more specific timeline a week from before the rain came.
Right. So when he first started building, he had no idea of when the rain would actually come, right?
Correct. God was managing that timeline. Yes.
Right.
How long was it? Like, how long was it he actually had to build he took to build the ark?
It doesn't actually say. It doesn't actually say.
Okay.
It doesn't. The Bible does not actually say. We have learned it was 120 years, and that has come through a verse in chapter 6:3. 6:3 is the verse that people have used to suggest that it was 120 years, but that doesn't actually say that, and so I would just say we don't know. We could speculate, but we don't know.
I mean, I don't know if there's an answer to your question, because there are times where he does things quickly and there's times when he does things in a short amount of time. And either way, his intentions are still the same.
Exactly. So what are his intentions? And that's really what are his intentions that process becomes valuable? That's really what I'm asking. Because when we go back to it, and we come back to the conversation we were having with Rika last time, what is it that God is concerned about that he would allow somebody to be get sick for however long? What is it that is what is it that he's ultimate? Because if you're thinking about how he's concerned about me, you would think that if he was concerned about me, he would heal me, right?
Right.
Or he would fix my situation, right? Or he would save me, or he could, snap his fingers and it would go away. Or he could help me get to this place a whole lot, he could just take me to that place. But what is it that he's concerned about that he chooses to limit himself to the process? Or he chooses to put me through the process? What is it that process generates, develops, or what is it that God's concerned about that process now becomes an advantage? I'm asking that because I wonder if I understood that, I would reflect on my life experiences differently. And I would better appreciate God's concern for me because his concern is for that thing, and this facilitates that thing.
There's a verse in Psalms talking about Joseph. Psalms 105, verse 19. And believe, let me make sure I'm reading it from
You said
my
Psalms
own
what?
105. 105. 105. And what did I say? 105.
While you're looking for that, Batman said you can't force someone to change. They have to do it on
105.19.
their own. And that takes understanding.
All right. So, 105:19 reads, it says, until the time came to fulfill his dreams, the Lord tested Joseph's character. Um, and what I was thinking about again when you're talking about process, because Joseph's stories similar to me in that vein of, you know, why Jesus, God could have put him in position right away, right? But there was a process that he was bringing Joseph through before he was actually positioned where he was supposed to be. Um, because I'm always looking at Joseph's stories like, man, like, he really had to go through all of that, like all those steps like that for him to be ready for
Mm.
that. But again, that process again, according to this, is just like, all right, this is the Lord was testing his character throughout all of that trial that was going on.
Yeah, we see the same thing when we read in Abraham. Abraham was 25 years from the promise to the fulfillment of the promise. Right? Like what it is that God is concerned about. What is he trying to achieve?
Mm.
What is his true concern for me? Is it my comfort and well-being? Clearly it's not. So what is it?
The person I become on the back end, I guess.
So I'm gonna
Because
leave
like,
it. Go ahead.
because like, so when you're asking the question, why the process? What's the intention behind the process? Once again, I can't give like a blanket answer. Like I can tell you what process has done for me. One of the some of the difficult times for me, where I have felt like I don't deserve X or I don't deserve B, and coming out of it, like almost like a what have I ever done to whatever, and coming out of it on the back end with the perspective of it didn't happen to destroy you. It was a refining process, chiseling and highlighting to me things that were qualities that I had that I would not have seen without the process, right? Things I wouldn't have been aware of until I went through certain things. Like in the good times, I didn't see those things, but it's not until I went through some of the things that I've gone through that it was like, dang, like, and it's more in hindsight than in the moment, right? Because in the moment, I'm just like, this is for the birds. But on the back end, it's like I just see me clearer, and then kind of like the lady, the sinner, the sinner with wiping her hair, like it's like you start to see. You don't. I mean, I don't think I fully see my state, my sinful state, but I see aspects of it when I go through certain things. And then I also see his grace and his love and his forgiveness and the support he sends me and the people he puts in my life and the testimonies I can give about my experiences and the impact it has on other people. Like it's not always, I feel like some of my stuff is about me and some of it is about other people. I think at the end of the day, he's not willing that anybody should perish. And so he puts us through these things in an effort to build a kind of character for heaven. And so sometimes for some of us, there's no one size fits all, which is why I think I'm having a hard time answering the question, because the intention behind the process is different for everybody.
Is it?
I feel like, well, I mean, specific intentions for each person is different. So like,
Is it?
I think so. I mean, there's an overall. I feel like there's an overall intention, but the way he does things for everybody doesn't go through the same thing.
Right, but whatever everybody goes through, isn't it for the same thing?
To make him ready for the kingdom is the overall just answer I could give, but
I'm gonna lean into this statement from Batman here. You can't force someone to change. You have to do it on their own, and it takes understanding. And as I was listening to you, that word understanding kept coming out, standing out bigger and bigger and bigger. You kept saying that on the back end, you gained understanding.
I did.
You gained understanding about yourself and him.
Yes.
Understanding that you wouldn't have if
I didn't go through.
were different.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that is a truism for everybody. That God is trying to help you understand you and understand him, so you could be in relationship with him. And then that you would choose to be in relationship with him. And then the things that he experience, for good or for discomfort, achieve that. And since understanding only comes through process, he leverages process to get there. Because he can't impart understanding. Understanding is something people come to on their own. And if I prioritize, I'm thinking like as a parent, if I think about like with Julian, Julian is going to grow up to be a man who needs to be attentive, mindful, responsible. So he's a little frustrated with some of the things I'm doing with him in his life right now, but I'm trying to develop that habit, that mindfulness, that thoughtful pattern in his life so that he can benefit from that down the road. Because that's an important thing, and that thing only comes from practice and use and development of it. As a parent, that's what I'm concerned about. He might be concerned about, why are you making me do this every day? Why you keep talking about this all the time? He doesn't see the value of it. And so I'm trying to see if I can understand a little bit better of what are the things that God values, that he takes that I could better understand what he's doing when he's doing with me, so that I can value it too. I think about Jesus' statement to Peter, you don't have in mind the concerns of God, but the concerns of man. So I'm really asking, what are the concerns of God? Jesus appeared to understand what the concerns of God is. So while he didn't really want to do the cross, he understood it enough and that he valued it enough to do it. Right? And so he had a whole different perspective on it. He has a whole different perspective on death because he understands the concerns of God. So he doesn't get as flustered about it as we do. So I'm just trying to understand, what are the concerns of God and how does process play out in that, or help in that, and so that I can, when I look at my life and look at God working in my life, better appreciate, if God is concerned about this, then this is beneficial to me, then I'm going to trust him because this is what he's really concerned about. Because I tend to be only concerned about my here and now comfort. My here and now circumstance. I know that people who sitting and reflecting on why God don't just answer my prayer. Like, why is it taking him so long to show up for me? But what is the concern of God in my circumstance? And it has to be the same thing for everybody, right? But I guess I would assume it's the same thing for everybody, not in terms of specifics, but in terms of, I want this for each of you. And I will work it this way for you, and this way for you, and this way for you. But I'm trying to get to the same place in each of you.
What's crazy
Yeah,
is like
that
one of
does
the
that.
things I think about is like one of the incidents, one of my lowest moments, um, and the why can't he just fix it or make it quick? Like it took 10 years. like 10 years, like to the point where within that 10 years, I was like, it's never happening. Like we just gonna come for something else. Like it's just not. And and I kind of almost like that defeated, like, like whatever. Um, and honestly, I learned about myself and I learned about him, but I still don't understand. And I guess I didn't look at it from that's all I was meant to get from it. Like it was more like, but why did you make me go through that? Like, why did you feel it was necessary? Was there not another route? Like, was there no other way you could have done that? But
Well, I'm sure there was, right? I'm sure that there is. But what was he trying to achieve, and was it effective? Because if this way was effective, then it was. But if I don't know what he's trying to achieve, then I can't assess whether this was effective or not. I'm sorry, I got distracted there. I'm going to pull up Gerald. I did pull up Gerald's comment. I would like to read it. He says, he treats us like metal in the fire. It takes time for the metal to transform, and the metal transforms on its own in that fire. The process is needed to make the metal handle the task. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that, the goal is to refine, the ultimate goal is to purify the gold. And that's a process in and of itself because of the nature of the gold and the nature of the impurities. And how do you get the impurities out of the gold? You got to put it in some fire. And so it's not it's a valuing of the gold to put it in the fire to purify it. So I can see that. I can see that. Let me throw another wrinkle in here. What's the role of faith in that? And I say that because I was reading Abraham and Genesis 15:6. God says, or the Bible says that Abraham believed God. The Lord was pleased with Abraham because he believed. So Abraham's faith made him right with God. If my faith makes me right with God, or if the faith credits me as righteousness, or I'm saved by grace through faith, faith has a big part to play in the outcomes that God is seeking to develop through each of us or in each of us. And is faith something that is subject to process? And why is faith subject to process? If it is, can faith be imparted instantly? What is it that the nature of faith that requires?
usually time weeds out, at least once again, my experience. In my experience, in Lorraine's experience, I feel like time reveals how much faith I really have in a thing. For me. So I know process doesn't necessarily mean like a long time, but
I also think about receiving what you say, Lorraine. I also think about what we've been reading in Luke and how the thing that Jesus keeps noticing is the faith of this one, the faith of this one, the faith of this one. And is it because faith makes us right with God that God is ultimately concerned with helping you grow your faith?
Batman wanted you to ask the question again.
Sorry, which question? Because I asked another.
Right.
Let me go to Gerald and I'll come back. People who use jobs for their resources. People who use their jobs resources for their own gain. Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering if that's what it is. If ultimately he wants each of us to be right with God and restore us back to God, and faith is the pathway to that, and everything that he's doing is to grow faith. That's my proposal. What do y'all think? For good or for bad, or what we consider good or bad, ultimately, that's what he's working on.
Mm. I think that in that faith is just trust. We're talking about this process, and in order for us to have learning, as we have to learn or I should say, our view of God can be wrong. So that's why we, so we can have that mistrust. Um, so I'm like, but I'm thinking about, like, I'm looking at, like, Paul, like in Philippians, let me see, chapter 3, verse 10.
You
He
said
was just
what?
talking about Philippians
Okay.
3:10 or 10 and 11. They could read differently in different versions, but basically talking about, he says, I want to, um, I mean, right before that, it was like, God's way of making us right with himself depends on faith. I want to know Christ and experience the mighty power that raised him from the dead. I want to suffer with him, sharing in his death, so that one day or another I will experience the resurrection from the dead. So I feel like in this situation, he's talking about wanting to know Christ for, like, in and out. Like, this is something that is a part of his, in this sense, having a right view of God, um, which I think is a part of the whole trust, that whole process of the trust that we're trying to gain with faith. Like, as these things are going on in our lives, and we're evaluating these things, this process that God's going through, or allowing us to go through in our lives, we're getting a better view of God.
Hmm.
And that's just a part of it. I mean, then another part of it in my mind is, I think after a while you kind of develop a different attitude, one that would be better for learning, because now you're starting to understand that God is training you. So again, it's just something that comes with, I guess, more time, because I think that initially we're going to be more resistant to those kind of things.
I hear you, Courtney.
Isn't everything God doing an attempt to get us to know and understand Him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever mean. I hate saying in this case by whatever means necessary, but the narrative that we're under right now is the lie, and trying to get people to understand the truth is the fight. So I would think that everything he's doing, no matter how he has to achieve it, is pretty much to get us to understand his side.
Hmm.
I mean, in order to make an intelligent decision, you have to know both sides. Otherwise, your view or your premise is skewed, right? All my life I've been taught a lie. When you come along with something else, I think what you're telling me is the lie. But in order for me to to get to know that, I'd have to understand that to be able to weigh the two. And I think God is getting an unfair shake. So everything he's doing is trying to me, everything he's doing is trying to get me to understand who he is, because I don't know who he is.
And I can see where process will be valuable in that. because you can't get understanding just, understanding comes with experience, experience comes with time, and even understanding someone in a relational context requires frequency, um, intimacy, intentionality, and those kinds of things. That in itself is a process. And if the outcome is, as you put in it, understanding of self, understanding of him, and understanding of self in relation to him to facilitate the relationship with him, and faith becomes a tool in that, or a byproduct of that. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Okay. I just wanted to say hello to the bishop, and I thought I was gonna see Gerald on here as well. You know what I'm saying? I was fighting to hurry up and get here. When I got here, everybody took off. So what's up, Bishop?
Ain't nothing. I'm letting this conversation rock. I don't have anything to add to this one.
It was just something I've been, mulling over in my mind for myself. When I saw that he let the waters just drain out, like that's when that stood out to me. Like, wow, he just let it rock. Why?
Well,
Why?
if you don't have any holes in the bowl, it takes time for it to evaporate.
Exactly why? Why did he take that approach to just let it drain out? A whole year they sit in that thing. A whole year. When you do the math on all the days, it was a year that they were in the boat, at least. And so I was just curious about the why, because and I was wondering if I can nail down that why I have a better understanding of what he's doing in other parts of my life, because I understand not what he's doing specifically, but what his concerns are. Ultimately, what is it he's interested in?
Yeah, well, that thought goes back to what you were. To me, that thought goes back to what you were saying when he first started everything. When he flooded the earth to begin with. Why couldn't he just? I heard Jerry say the Thanos thing. You know what I mean? He could have did that, but the elimination was a process. So starting it over was another process, and you just kind of say, okay. To me, I was like, I got to kind of understand why he did it that way. What was the process in doing it that way to kind of understand why he undid it?
A couple of other things that came to me as I was mulling over it this week. I did kind of settle in a place. And seeing as, we could kind of go there now. There are intangibles, character traits that are developed through process. Things like discipline, appreciation. Like someone said to me, easy come, easy go about something. And I was like, really? And I was like, yeah, if I didn't have to put in the work to get something, then I don't appreciate it as much. If it can come quickly and I can, I don't have the same kind of value for it. And I don't know that you can impart that kind of value to somebody or just give it to them if they have not made that significant time and investment. And so, it could be that I better appreciate, like Lorian, I better appreciate his concern for me, his genuine concern for me on the back end after I've seen what he's done through this very uncomfortable and seemingly unnecessary experience that I had to go through.
Yeah.
And then once I get to that place of appreciation, it then directs my actions, my attitudes, my thoughts going forward. And that's not something God can manufacture or snap his fingers on. Or at least he chooses. I don't think he can, because we have to make those choices.
Real talk, it sucks. It sucks. What? Oh my gosh. Some of that stuff, man. Some of it you can paint it into like this. This some stuff you're like, look, man, look. Can we do something else?
Mm.
But I don't know.
And to what
What's
Cliff.
scary for me though, what's scary for me is so I kind of view I feel like, okay, so with children, usually you give them like the won't give you more than you can bear kind of conversation, right? Something along that line. So like with children, you don't tell them to lift like heavy boxes that's just above their ability to carry, right? You give them, you get the groceries. You're like, oh yeah, you take the one with the bag of chips, because they can't carry the one with the big gallon jug of milk in it. They would about near fall over. And then when you guys, okay, they get older, they get stronger, right? They went through that experience, that process. And you're like, okay, you can handle some milk. You can handle a jug of milk. You can handle a jug of milk. Then you give them the jug of milk, and they strain a little bit, but they get used to carrying a jug of milk. Then you up them to the 25 pack of waters.
Up to 50 pounds. Because anything after
Right.
50 pounds, you had to pay extra for.
Look, and so it's like now, like, and I laugh, but I'm not laughing because I feel like the stuff builds. Like, I don't feel like it tapers down. Like, I feel like it builds. It doesn't like, it's either at the same level. The lesser stuff you don't really notice, I guess, because like it's like as you, at least for me, back to me, as I have experienced certain things, the little things now in hindsight, the little things that I was experiencing, like I would like lose it, like I would panic, I would scream, I would holler, I would kick, I'd throw a temper tantrum, and then I guess he like was like, all right, level up. I'm like, wait, I'm not ready for you to level up. And then it's like, yeah, but the last time, like I had you at the other thing.
Like the gym instructor gear say, okay, take the heavier weights now.
Look, and that's what I feel like in my life. Like there's things, and I'm like, okay, yo, that last one was pretty bad. Like, please no more. I think I'm tapped out. I think this is where I'm good. But based on the trends, if it's anything like back there,
What I'm
yeah,
hearing from you, Lauren, the word that's coming to mind is maturity.
man.
And that was one of the things that I came to, you reminded me that I came to while I was processing this for myself. It appears that one of the things that God is interested in is maturity, my maturity and the maturity of our relationship. And process would facilitate that. Like his concerns are with intangibles, maturity, faith, relationship, and they're kind of all intertwined. So,
Some of those things take you to the brink. Like for some people, the brink of existence. Like some of those things can take you to that place. And it's like, and you mean there's more? Like this is not it. You don't feel like I've matured enough. You don't feel like I've reached the level yet. I haven't reached there yet.
but that's the thing about maturity, right? Like a mature 5-year-old is different from a mature 15-year-old, is different from a mature 20-year-old. And all of them get to a level of maturity, but then you have to mature more in the next phase. Like maturity is constant and ongoing. And there's maturity for your stage. So I don't think I don't ever ends. All right, Batman saying, what if the process was to leave identifying evidence that can be faced back to truth? Yeah.
So I
Except,
do use my past experiences as milestones, right? So I do use them when things do happen. Not just my own experience, but the experience of family members and things I've witnessed for myself. I do use them to help me to endure, like, okay, now it still sucks, but I know I say sucks a lot because it just really does suck. but I do experience some things, and I feel like because of my experience, or because of the things I've witnessed, or because of testimonies of other people, it's like giving me the last win, like the little whatever I needed just to like make it. Um, but man, I don't know.
I think you might be. I think you might be right, and I agree with you, Lauren, in that whole milestone markers experience thing. Um, because if he was to just tell you, up front, you'd be like, yeah, whatever, I know better. Until you go through the experience and you go, yeah, he was right, and I lived it, and I'm gonna trust now because he was right. Um, and I've had the opportunity to see it and experience it and know it, which is why I think the whole every knee shall bow and tongue confess is because after it's all played out, the record shows that he is sovereign and has been sovereign the whole time, and there's no debate to be had at the end because it's played out and it has demonstrated it. He could have said it and established it and said, yeah, just take my word for it, I know. But what would that do? Back to Cliff's assertion, then we don't have that understanding. Then we don't have that collective understanding. Not just the individual understanding. Then there's also the collective understanding that his way is the right way. Understanding comes with experience. Experiences process helps to facilitate experience. Yeah, so that was me. That was why I was wrestling with this week. It was coming on the heels of our conversation with Sharika last time, because I was like, well, what is he doing? What is he doing? And how do I know? Oh, in light of how Jesus responds to death because he had a different perspective, can I then look at my situation differently because I better understand what his perspective is? Is there a way to get a glimpse as to what his perspective is, what he really cares about, what he's really working towards, and how this aids in that, or helps in that, or gets me to that destination? So that's what I was wrestling with. I did have one more thing, Sharika, Genesis 11. We didn't get to it last time. But yeah, Genesis 11 starts to move us faster to 120. Genesis 11 gives you the line of Seth, and it walks the numbers down to 120, to Nahor and Abraham. So.
Okay. No argument from me.
So yeah. All right. We're at 9:35. Anybody else had anything that they were reading this week that they wanted to raise, speak to, ask about, share?
I had an interesting conversation today, long conversation today, that kind of has me reflecting a little bit back about what we were talking about last week. And the person simply posed the question, if I feel I'm a good person, I'm doing the right things, I'm working towards the right method, but yet I see, in so many words, all the wicked prospering, what's the point?
That's Ecclesiastes, right? That's the same question Solomon asked in Ecclesiastes, right? That's a good question, because he said, I did everything. So, what's the point?
Was that the same as like, what's the point of being weary and doing well? Is that kind of essentially what you're saying?
I would.
Well, my internet is acting up, so you guys are coming in. Go ahead. If you
I was going to say, Cliff, what's the point depends on your perspective, right? Depends on what you value, right? And I'm gonna go back to what's the using Kenrick and Jewel with the towel on the bed. You know, what's the big deal about leaving the towel on the bed? You know, it don't really matter. He can move it, she can move it. Why is that a thing? Depends on whether you focus on the relationship or the towel. I'm gonna say it this way. If my thought on that is if I care about him, then I care about the things he cares about, and I'm gonna do the things that show that I care about him. And then that becomes the point. If I care about prospering, then there is no point. Because those people don't care about him and they're prospering.
Mhm.
You know, if I care about my wife, then I'm gonna do the things that are important to her, whether they necessarily benefit me or not. You know, it's the concern for the relationship.
They usually don't, but that's okay.
They want to say it like that, but yeah. So depends on your perspective, and I think the whole thing kind of revolves around the perspective. That's my thought anyway. Anybody had any thoughts on that from Cliff? And you
My
guys real
thought,
quiet today, real quiet.
my thought, as think more recently, recent years, keep on. I don't know the verse off the top of my head, but to think that to know that our human heart isn't is wicked, right? I think that each individual can oftentimes think that their particular actions or behaviors or whatever are good. you know, so it's always interesting. Some person can really feel like they're doing something good, right? But I guess our definition of that, and then what you know, what God calls actual good is could be different.
Yeah.
Because I think you talking about accountability. I had conversations with a close friend of mine, and they were talking to me about like those kind of things too. Like some people that have, they may share like, oh, my intentions are this and that, but it's like, all right, with the actual execution of it, if it's not actually resulting in, I will say something positive, or especially to the person that you're trying to do good towards, is it really good? Like,
So
you're
Courtney,
gonna plant
that's
that
what,
flag and say, but this is what but I mean well, like what?
so Courtney, isn't that what a lot of people say for God?
Yeah,
God, but God gets the benefit of the doubt though about his intentions, right?
yeah,
But his intentions don't necessarily feel good to the people who've been experiencing his good intentions, right?
Hey, come
right,
on.
right.
It's the process.
I mean, I just trust that God knows what He's doing. I don't know about the regular human being.
See, that's
Like,
that's the other thing.
yeah,
He gets the benefit of the doubt because we trust him.
yeah, that's it.
Because some of us trust him.
Yeah,
Because there are people who not giving him the benefit of the doubt because they don't trust him.
Hmm.
fair
They're like,
enough.
if you really cared about me, if you really cared about me, if your intention was to do good to me,
I mean, but then we could fall into that trap of like the child and the parent, where you know, again, as I'm moving into this parenthood role, we're gonna, and and I've gotten more mature myself. I look back on the lessons, like you were talking about your son. the things that you're trying to teach him. I remember my parents, my grandparents trying to instill things in me, and I thought they were just annoying to me. They're frustrating. Like, how many times you going to keep talking about this, or um, just after me about everything? Like, dang, like, can you get a break? Like, hey, I do it 95% of the time. Like, you're gonna really get all crazy about, oh, I forgot this one time. Like, but like you said, to develop those habits, it's important. That's their intention. But I didn't understand that then. Now I do. I'm like, oh, okay, okay. But look how many years that took. Like, I didn't get that the first couple years. I was just
Yeah.
like, man, I can't wait to to be an adult. I'm out of here,
And
like
then you start
everybody
leaning on
else.
those very same things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Now you got to come back and say, oh, okay, I see what you was
Mhm.
trying to do. What you trying to tell me?
Yo, I want to be a Toys R Us kid again.
Look, okay.
I second that motion.
Nah, y'all tripping. I ain't trying to live under them people roof no more. I'm good.
Yo, Connie, if I could go back and do it again, I would gladly, gladly,
Nah,
Mm,
I
gladly.
ain't
mm.
doing it.
Bro, just not to have a mortgage and have to pay all these bills. Listen,
Yo, you don't know what that the other side is like. You didn't know the freedom that you had to just focus on schoolwork. So
or
to just do
nothing.
homework. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Although I don't want to do that. I'd like the homework, no, not the exams. I don't want to have to study for the test. I'm
I'm
tired of
saying, dog, that's what you was doing every week.
I'm
Every time
good
you
at
look.
homework, not a
Man,
test. Yeah. I'm glad
no.
to pass the testing phase.
Yeah.
I hate testing. All right. Anybody else had anything else? All right. Well,
I'm just gonna I'm gonna put my plug in. This is usually the time of year where I put my plug in. You know that you should read the book of Jasher and Jubilee and the other ones that are not. They shed a lot of light on some things. I'm gonna say that. I'm just gonna leave that alone.
because
Check it out.
you said it goes well with Genesis, is what you're saying? Okay.
Yes,
So,
All right.
yes.
You have links to
Got a backstory.
online references?
Yeah, actually, you can just pick up an app. I got an app that I downloaded on my phone called. Let me see. It's called what is it called? Lost Books is what it's called,
Okay.
and it has all those on there.
All
But
right, cool.
somebody gifted you the Cipher, right?
Yes, I do have that, the Seafront Hall.
It's in there.
I
Start
I know
start
I
reading
have it.
Jasher.
Yeah, Dasher. Okay. All right. I'm gonna start with that one. All right, well, let's do takeaways. Lauren, we'll start with you because you're the top.
Um, um, I wrote down. I hope that his process for me is not to get this sucks out of me because that's how I feel. I was like, is there room for this sucks and your will be done? Is there a space where those two can exist? Because I hope. Oh, because I'm yet to not say that when I would. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, Courtney?
oh man, first part is I'm grateful to be back. Um, for tonight, just thinking about the value and process. Um, again, just getting that right the right view of God. Um, you know, and I guess as
Hmm.
we talked, I develop in my own process, God training me. I feel like there's parts where I've grown bitter, or felt sorry for myself, or been resistant to the whole thing. But again, just the what you mentioned about maturity, that is constant and ongoing, is something I'm gonna take away from that. It's not this whole. I don't quite arrive. It's I want to continue.
Word. How about you, Sharika?
I missed a lot of the conversation, and the parts that I did get, I'm not built for those. So I'm gonna just let y'all pass me on by.
All right, Jerry.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth on this whole concept of the process, right? And sometimes you think, you've gotten past a particular point, or like, Courtney was saying, you think you might have arrived. Something else to do right around the corner, man. But that's why God says He is with us, right? So
Yeah. Cliff.
If you guys can hear me, because my internet is acting real funny, but
Yeah, we can
there's
hear
a
you.
verse in the song that says, okay, it says, whatever the task may be, stand fast and just believe. He's working it out for your good. I think that's going to be my takeaway right there, is to try to understand that there is a process, and somewhere along the line, even though I may not like it, or I may not be in a total agreement, he's working it out for my good. So I'm going to take that away.
That's what's up.
Trisha.
I don't have a takeaway from this conversation. Like Sharika, I came in late, and I didn't really have anything to add to the conversation of process. So
Gotcha.
yeah, yep.
Okay. So I did notice something for my takeaway. My takeaway is I just reflected and I was trying to actually get the verse. Trying to get the verse. I thought I underlined it. I know I noticed it. Like when God first shows up to talk to Abraham, and he goes into this, he tells them, I'm going to give you this land, the descendants will have it. And he says, they will be my people and I will be your God. Didn't realize that he had said that so early. I had noticed it in the covenant in Sinai. I noticed it at the end in Revelation. When the world is made new, he comes back and he says, "I'll be their people. They will be my people, and I will be their God." But like, it appears that dynamic seems to be central to all that he's doing. Like that's the outcome. You'll be my people, and I'll be your God. And that relationship can be had outside of well, I guess it can. He chooses to engage that relationship in the circumstances that we face, whatever those are, and that the relationship is to transcend those circumstances, or regardless of the circumstances, to facilitate the relationship. And I think for me, framing that as a lens to make sense of what am I experiencing in and around God makes it more bearable and loving. And it gives it a different value, and I feel differently about it when I use that framework for processing it and making sense of it. How does this advance the relationship? How does this grow the relationship? How does this help me be his people and he be my God? That framework gives me a different measure of peace in my experience. So that's what I'm walking away with out of this conversation today. So thank you guys for giving me a chance to process that out loud, because I didn't land there this week. I was getting there, but I kind of and the day coming out of it today. So yeah. With 8 minutes to spare, if you're in the chat, feel free to drop your takeaways in there, and then we'll pray and close. Sharika, you did such a great job last time. Courtney became the designated reader. I'm almost leaning towards, I'm not going to do it, but I was considering being playful and saying you'll become our designated prayer when you're here. But that was me being silly. I'm just going to ask you to do it tonight.
I appreciate you not having such high expectations of me. Because Lord knows I ain't going to make it.
The anointing.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So Heavenly Father, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to fellowship. Thank you again for the mercies that you give us as we inquire about your word, not necessarily questioning your word. I ask that you settle within us what it really means to be angry and do not sin. We're allowed to not like something as long as we respect the sovereignty of your nature. It's kind of what's settled with me. Hopefully that's what you expect of us. If not, give us another direction. Appreciate that. As we continue the Sabbath, help that we may get the best rest. Thank you for blessing Courtney and his family to bring another life in. Continue to bless them. Continue to give them patience. Continue to allow for their rest of 1 minute to equal 5 minutes, because the Lord knows they'll need it. Bless all the families here, those who've listened and those who always do but just didn't get a chance to today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen, amen. All right, January 19, we're here again, February 2, so we're not missing a week. 2 weeks we'll be here, God willing. And yeah, until then, continue reading, continue drinking up. It's full of good stuff in there, and I love getting you guys' perspective, so I'm looking forward to hearing it more next time. Hallelujah, and multiplying that 1 minute, rest multiplying. Yeah. Sweet. Hi, guys. Until the next time, drink up, and we'll see you again soon. Peace and blessings.